Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Dan. Hi, Dan.
Jen, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. I am fantastic today. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple of things. I want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed. We hit 100 subscribers today. So if you have not already, please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow the show. You can check us out with the links down below. We've been getting a lot of views, especially from last week's episode. So I'm super excited to be diving into today's. Do you want to kind of give us an intro to today's?
Well, yeah, tonight, so we're doing David Wilcox and his reincarnation from Edgar Casey. And so I went through and studied the lines that were in there. I also sent you a wheel, Jennifer, so we could see the progression of these two. And we're going to try and answer that question.
Oops, didn't mean to pop that up just yet. Awesome. Yeah. And today we have Robbie joining us, so I'm super excited.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Jen.
She's done both of their astrology charts, correct?
Yeah, I actually have them pulled up right now, and I was just looking at their human design chart, too.
Yeah, so this is going to be one interesting show.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, I'm going to pass over the torch to you.
Well, I didn't know much about these two beforehand. So I ended up watching a bunch of video and just sort of checking into them. There wasn't much on Edgar Casey as it relates to video. Of course, he passed in 1945, so January, I think, of 1945. So hard to say. I couldn't tell. But the question appears to be that David Wilcox has accepted the likelihood, apparently, that he is the reincarnation of Senor Casey, of Edgar Casey. And I don't know out in the world, guys, maybe you know, how much is this sort of accepted that he is the reincarnation of, and therefore what does he, and he channels things, and he does, I know he does a lot of stuff looking into ancient wisdoms and aliens from the past and so forth. And he's part of the disclosure community, so that's always good. But is he sure of this, or what's the?
I'm just gonna this book came out in 2004, and it was co-authored with David Wilcock, and it's the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, which is a fascinating read, by the way. With Edgar Casey, I mean, it's reluctantly, I mean, after reading this and, following David Wilcock for many, many, many years, he kind of reluctantly accepted it, I think, in 1999, because it started when he came into, I forget the gentleman's name, but, and he's like, why do you have a picture of me? And it was this, or why do you have, there was this picture right here, which looks an awful lot like young Edgar Casey. And according to, Plato, Percival, and even Edgar Casey, there are physical characteristics from lifetime to lifetime. And according to Ra-Ta, who is somebody that I believe is Ra, I don't know if it's the same Ra from the Law of One or not, which I'm sure it probably is. And
there's a lot of Ra's.
Yeah, I mean, the Ra soul group, I would imagine. But I mean, Ra, like, Edgar Casey, when he did his own past life readings, he described his past life as a high priest named Ra Ta in the Egyptian time, 10,500 BC. So, and then like there's a lot of correlations with the raw material, which I think, as we all know, David Wilcock is very, very into. And it's good information. It's great information. As a matter of fact, I have the books sitting on my bookshelf. So, what was the question?
If one, he claims it, and I feel like he does. This is something that he feels deep in his soul that he is, or that's how he presents it. Because I know the books that I've read by David Wilcock, it's something that he has. I've heard him mention it more than once. So
right.
Well, but I mean, there's Edgar Casey's picture. I mean, it's like I can see how. I mean, it looks just like him.
Yeah, and if you look at this, like it's a really tiny picture, but if you look at this little tiny picture, like right there on the cover of the book, I mean, those two, I mean, they literally could be interchangeable. And that's one of the interesting things when you get into past life research, that like there is usually a physical resemblance, and it's usually through right here, whether you're male or female in one incarnation, or even different skin color from lifetime to lifetime, you will still have the same look through here. And it's like
that same look is there. That same look.
Yeah, and it's well, what they'll do is they'll flip the flip the photographs or paintings upside down and compare them, and you can really see it because it actually will activate the right side of your brain, and you can see it. So
that's wicked interesting stuff. So in human design, flip back. We're going to be going back and forth between these two slides. In human design, what we do know is that wherever there are gates on an open center, look, he's got a gate on that open throat center, gate 23. So this is what he's here working out. This is what he carried forward into this lifetime, that literally then after this particular lifetime, that sort of gets solved. And then we move on until you see some charts have no gates on open centers. And it doesn't mean they're done. It just means they've completed a bunch of process. And some charts are loaded with gates on open centers. And none of it's good, none of it's bad. It's just an indicator that from whence they came. So he's got that gate. Gate 20. Go ahead.
So I have a question on that, Dan. So Edgar Casey has the open gate 23. And then what would finish that gate would be gate 43, and David Wilcock has that.
David Wilcock has it. Yeah, so these are the anomalies. This is what keeps me having going back and forth. Go to David Wilcock. You'll see he's got the electromagnetic to that. If you slip over to his graph, you'll see he's got gate 43 on an open center. But let's just count these gates up for a second. Count this one. So how many gates on open centers are there for David Wilcox? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them. So he's here finishing a lot, yet go back to the other one. And you'll see that Edgar Casey was here finishing quite a bit less. He's got gate 23, and he's got, which is the explainer, and it's in an open center, so he'll be the channeler of explanation. Isn't that what he did when he was asleep?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's Edgar Casey, and he's got gate 38 on the root center. See that they're way down at the bottom. These are his only two gates on an open center, and gate 38. And notice they're both doubly defined. So he's double at work channeling his explanations, and he's double at work being a fighter, fighting for the purpose and the meaning to what is it he's explaining. And so he fought so hard he died young, is what it sounds like. He died at 65 years of age, as I recall, 64, 5, 6, somewhere in there. And He was born in 1877 and he died in 45, so he wasn't that old. And
well, according to it's like I've loved Edgar Casey since I was a little kid, reading about him in the National Enquirer for predictions of the future. But like with Edgar Casey, it's like he, first of all, he never remembered anything that he ever said to people, which is indicative of a full trance channel. And I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
that's all right.
You were talking about him not remembering what he says to people.
Yeah. Well, and it's like what I find interesting too is like David Wilcock like over explains everything.
Yes,
Right.
yes, he does. Yes, he does.
And that normally would be the function of an open throat, is to potentially over-explain stuff. The people with an open throat during their younger years, they're working on their timing for expression because they're open to expression. They're not sure when will they express. They're not sure if they're uncomfortable when will they express. And this is somebody who wants to express an explanation because that's the only gate hanging off of there. And there's one gate pointing at it, gate 1. So he wants to contribute. He wants to contribute his unique way into an expression. That's Edgar Casey. That's what gate 1.
I know what I was going to say. Sorry. Go finish your thought, Dan, and then I'll remember again.
Well, what I'm getting at is so this is Edgar Casey. And look, his arrows point all to the right. You might want to jot it down, Rob. It's going to take a moment. Most of his arrows are pointing to the right, and one arrow points to the left. All that right-leaning arrows are everything in his brain. How he would, on all the right-facing ones, is everything in his mind. His brain is open and receptive to the forces. His throat is an open center, so it's open to the forces coming in. And those forces for him are the forces of contributing an explanation, contributing his unique explanation. And see, he had a stenographer or shorthand person, a secretary, always writing it all down. What he channeled, I'm not sure, you know what I'm saying, but this would be what this being would identify with. And he would have to share it because he's got all this collective definition in his body graph. It's almost all collective. The one other definition is that tribal support on the right-hand side. Robbie, you have this channel. It's all about being supportive of the tribe, making sure everyone gets their due. And Edgar Casey was making sure the world's tribe had him. He was when people got him, they were getting their due. They were being supported. So as I recall, in the stuff I was reading and saw about him, he did this rather selflessly right up until he died. He did this like 14,000 times or something like that. He was just a machine at it. And that's what this design shows. He's a right angle cross of the vessel of love. So he would have an intrinsic love for all of humanity. And of course, and that was required to be shared. He's required to share his love of humanity through his love of himself and the behavior through what is it he can explain while he goes under. No wonder his explanations happened while he was under, because while he was awake, he would have been a conditioned man being shy about speaking. Was Edgar Casey withdrawn? Was he shy? Did he do a lot of standard public speaking, or did he do most of his stuff when he went under on his couch and people were jotting it down? Does anyone know?
It was always under. He was very rarely until he opened the ARE Center in Virginia later in life.
But so he wasn't out in the public eye and speaking and blah, 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 all fluent in the mix. No.
No. In fact, like from what I know about Edgar Casey, and I know quite a bit, I've got just one whole entire bookshelf of his works, was that, it's like he'd be like, well, it's like he didn't know where the information was coming from. He didn't know, it's like, and he was very shy about it. And, and he was very Christian, very religious in his beliefs of, like traditional Bible beliefs. And so it's like some of the stuff when he got into reincarnation was very like, whoa.
Well, look for a second. Let's look for a second at what is it that this man is channeling? Wherever there are red lines in your body graph, that's where you're channeling. The red is the body's design. It's unconscious. We don't have access to it. Yes, Jennifer?
What about the red and black ones? Does that include?
Wherever there's red and black, it just means that it's activated on both sides of the body graph. It's activated.
Okay, so it would still apply.
So it would still apply, but some of it he would be conscious to. So he was conscious to that he wanted to explain stuff, and when he went under, he could explain stuff. He was conscious to that he wanted to fight for things, and when he went under, he fought for things. But look at these red lines. The ones that stand out are gate 64 at the top, the primary dreaming gate. Primary, it's unconscious. So of course he would go under to channel his stuff. That would be where he would naturally be the most talkative, is in a shallow form of sleep. As I recall, each time he went under, he did it on purpose. It wasn't like he was dead tired and went to sleep. It was he put himself down, essentially, right? He would go lay on his bed.
It was a form of self-hypnosis.
Right, but so that's not deep REM sleep, out cold. No, that's somewhere shallow, somewhere in the middle. Yeah. So in that lucid dreaming state, unconsciously channeled through him channeling. That's the whole thing. We are the channeler. We're not necessarily channeling the fates and the gods from above and the forces from outside of us. We're psychically attuned to the forces, and we are the channel. So it's hard to determine what information was already in him, is what I'm getting at. We all carry the encyclopedia of everything that was before. And if you have a right mind and right arrows on your body graph, you're carrying everything. You're carrying every blade of grass you ever saw, every word you ever heard, every sound that ever went through, everything. You're carrying every thought, everything someone said. And so gate 25 in his, let me do the red gate. So he's got gate 64, the primary dreaming gate, it's red. Look it down on his solar plex center. He's got gate 55. Jen, you and Robbie have a gate 55. This is the spirit of humanity. So he goes under to channel what's the spirit of humanity. And then in his openness to expression, he explains it out his gate 23, the assimilation of all the sound that came through being assimilated and metamorphosized into speech, into vocabulary, into articulation. Because that's what the metamorphosis is of gate 23 and all those gates on the top of the throat center. But gate 23 is the metamorphosis of the sound and the racket going on in your head, metamorphosizing that into speech. Because it comes as, like Robbie, you just forgot something you were going to say. It happens to all of us because it's hard to take that inner knowing and translate it down the funnel system into something that's articulate. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, we do it. All of us speak like it's normal as we get older, but you know why kids have such a hard time learning to speak at first. Because I mean, that's a lot of process going on there. And then the spirit of humanity, my God, that's a pretty big deal. The spirit of humanity needs to be externalized. Look at that. And it's literally the judge. He's the judge of the spirit that pours through him. That's Edgar Casey. And so what does he do? He spits it out. He externalizes it. If you look down the left side of the red information and find gate 55, you'll notice it's in Saturn. It's about 2/3 of the way down right there. That's Saturn. Saturn doesn't do anything for us. It just punishes us if we don't do what it says.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say that. It's like the father figure.
Master Saturn.
Yeah, so 55 is the gate of spirit, and it's in a fourth line. The keynote for a fourth line is fixedness, fixed trip. He's going to find one specific way to basically channel that spirit. The other keynotes for it are, it's the externalizer. It's here to externalize. It's also unstable. It's in and it's out. It's in and it's out. And it's very fixed in its way of externalizing. He has to externalize the spirit. And everyone knows what the spirit of humanity is to themselves. They know when their spirit is high and when their spirit is low and when the spirit of the situation sucks. And let's say they watch the same TV show for 14 years and finally they're sick of it, and bam, Cheers was on for 10 years and then finally goes off the air. People were sick of it or whatever. The spirit left, except on their last episode, of course, when then suddenly everyone didn't want it to leave. But regardless, so, What else?
That's so true.
Well, that's how it always is.
You know,
Because
I never even watched that show.
the spirit comes back. That's humanity. We're very oppositional creatures. You take it away, it's like, oh, no, wait a minute. I'm not sure if I'm done with the spirit of that show. He was never done with the spirit of what was it he would channel through his primary dreaming gate, all of which was unconscious in him, that his body delivered him the chemistry for which he could just talk. What did he speak out? You know, again, I didn't have time to go in depth. What I saw was a recounting of many of his predictions. And I guess half of them came true and half of them didn't, or 2/3 did and a third didn't, or weren't gonna, or weren't meant to be.
Haven't yet.
Or haven't yet. Well, the ones I'm thinking of were ones where he gave time frames.
Okay.
Someone did a report on it. Probably someone who didn't care for Edgar Casey or wanted to maybe debunk him a little bit. But I was just listening to the details. And I didn't care what the guy was saying. I just wanted to hear the details. So apparently some of his stuff didn't and some of his stuff did.
Or didn't happen yet, even though that there was a time frame on it. I mean,
no, right. So we don't know about all that because ethereal time frames could be timeless. We just don't know. So with all of that handy, I don't mind dogs in the background. I say that's good, Jen. The other redness in his body graph, the things that stand out are gate 37 has a red piece of it, and that is in his solar plex center, and that gate 37 is affection and friendliness. So he's going to unconsciously share, support everyone with the work he does with his affection. He was very affectionate about the things he read for. If somebody needed him to read and go under, I'm sure he charged a price for it so he could, survive. But at the same time, I can imagine in that state, he was very affectionate towards that person. The love of that person. That's a pretty big, and the want to support them. And the want to make a deal that comes through with an ego that will reward itself every time he does a reading for somebody. So this whole trip was right up his alley.
Well, he never actually took money for people.
Someone paid him.
What's that?
Someone paid him something. He ate food and he had a house and stuff.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he wouldn't charge a specific amount for a reading. I think
that just goes more in line with what I'm saying in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And the next one that stands out is he's got red gates all over the place. Actually, his gate 10, the gate of behavior. So his behavior was best when he was unconscious. Channeling. He's got a gate 1 off the top of the G center. That is the limitless expression of the identity in its most creative. The limitless expression of the identity independent of will. Meaning if he sits there and says, I'm going to make this happen, he can't make it happen. But when he goes under and it happens naturally, oh, there you go. Independent of willpower, of I will or I can. If he said I can, then he probably couldn't. That was probably half the reason he went under into a shallow sleep in order to do this stuff, so he could make himself independent of will, which would just get in the way. The ego mind that gets in the way. And this channel of rhythm, 15-5, that goes between the sacral center and the identity. So he's got all this vessel of love action empowering a direction. In fact, his identity has got the exact same gates my identity center has on it. I know them all too well. Gate 15 for him is unconscious. The love of humanity would pour through him unconsciously as he would read for the humans or as he would read for humanity. If I'm not mistaken, he was willing to do extreme things. Gate 15 is the gate of extremes, the gate of willing to accept the extreme nature of anything. Gate 25 is, it's not unconscious, but it's still also the willingness to accept the extreme nature of anything and catch the leaper that would be that warrior. But so his extreme nature in a fixed pattern, he would enter a fixed pattern and channel the extremes through the spirit and the struggle of humanity to help humanity hear what it needed to hear, according to him, through his primary dreaming gate, which he could only access when he was asleep. So Edgar Casey was living out his design. That doesn't speak to
I would say so.
Of it all.
I have a question, Dan. So as I was thumbing through this the human design book here, I noticed that there was circuits, like there's a logic circuit. There's,
Yeah.
is there an intuitive circuit?
Yeah, the individual circuitry. And he's got no definition in the individual circuitry, but he's got plenty of gates in the individual circuitry. The primary one we started with is gate 23. That's in the individual circuitry. It's all intuitive, Robbie. It's moody. It's intuitive. It wants romance. It cares what it hears. It's in the mood or not. It's fickle. It's stubborn. It's individual, and no one else can have it. It can only be given. That's what but the other circuitry, like the collective circuitry between the that he has between the G center and the sacral center, those two solid channels, those are both collective channels. One is logic and one is abstract. So he had both cannons barreling along. He had a logical rhythm by which he would abstractly channel.
And that's gate 15 and 5 and 46 and 29?
That is that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, Robbie. I feel much better.
Well, I was just clarifying because I bet some people out there didn't know.
Nope. Absolutely. So, but back to one more thing. His son, Earth, 25, the love of all things. 46, the love of his body. The sun, Earth on the personality side, that which he would have mostly identified with. So, the love of all things that is in a defined center is always on, and his love of each thing. This is 25 is the alpha and the omega of gates. It begins here, it ends here. 25 is where the embryo was shocked into existence. This is where the seed and the egg meet. They meet here between gate 51 on the other side, which he doesn't have, and gate 25. Gate 25 receives that shock, that moment of conception. This is the alpha and the omega of humanity as it relates to and it is the love of all things. And he's got it in the first line. I want to read this. Gate 25, innocence, the spirit of the self. I'm going to keynote that when I get back to his 55 gate of spirit. And I'll do one last keynoting of him before we move on to the other, okay? So the spirit of the self, it's this perfected action through this uncontrived and spontaneous nature. Uncontrived and spontaneous. So what it says is, in all those moments in his life when he was contrived and not spontaneous, because he was contrived trying to make something happen, he's a generator. So when he was trying to initiate, which undoubtedly he did many times, all over and over, he would run into who he was not. He learned quickly, if I want to get to who I am, put me under. What,
I have the gate 25.
Yes, you do, Jen. And you very much are I do too. It's the alpha and the omega of what ends up being the human itself. So that uncontrived nature and its spontaneous nature for him was accessed when he went under, and it's a first line. So 25.1, that first line, that's the foundation of what this is. It's the foundation of this spontaneous, uncontrived nature. And that spontaneous nature is selflessness. The universal love of all things starts in the human being as selflessness. If I may back up a moment, it's sort of where we have it all wrong on this planet currently. True selflessness doesn't require money. It requires everyone else to act out true selflessness. And in their in their positive selflessness state, everyone will have whatever they need selflessly. We're designed for that. So here that is, and check out these lines. Notice he would waffle between the two. There's the two expressions of it are, it's just motiveless action. Where do you have the most sustained motiveless action? When you're asleep. I keep going back to, he kept putting himself under, and that was a requirement for it. So deep down inside of this man, on the right angle cross of the vessel of love, fully self-absorbed into himself. Right angle cross is a personal destiny. That's about me. And I'm here to be about me and let all the left angle cross people come in and meet me, basically. That's what the right angle's doing. It's constantly allowing itself to meet the forces, and the left angle crosses are the forces in this example. So here he is, gate 25, motiveless action. And this one here is the potential for centering through attunement, the attunement to all of the challenges, the universalization of activity, psychic attunement that is its own reward. attainable psychic attunement that is its own reward. So he would go half under, attuned to a psychic nature, and it was its reward. So Robbie, it makes perfect sense that he didn't care what he got paid. Apparently someone was paying his bill, and or they paid him enough.
Well, what you know, they like he did readings for a lot of wealthy people of the early 20th century.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of money off of his readings. And so
yeah.
I'm sure that, you know, they donated money to him, you know, and
they probably
so they could build the ARE Center and etc.
I'm certain they cleared the way for him. That would make sense. And then he could do it for anybody. So a mom comes along and needs help with her daughter or something like that, and she barely has 2 pennies to put together. He's just going to go and do it for her. He's got a selfless love of all things. I bet you he did lots of stuff for free. I bet you he went under as soon as he was called. This man had to share his gifts.
Yeah, and his source voice is what he called the source that he communicated with, told him that he was doing too many sessions, and he just wouldn't stop doing them. And he did 4 sessions a day for many years.
Yeah.
And and they told him, the voice told him that would probably be his demise.
Well,
because, he could have lived probably a lot longer, is what I'm saying.
Yep, very possibly. And then live longer and potentially help less people. Who knows? His whole thing was he was driven to share all of this, driven to share this stuff. He was driven to return, universalize the share. I'm going to keynote him now. Universalize the sharing of how do I psychically attune to the spirit of humanity in a dream state in which I can access it, channel it, and get it out as an explanation that serves the purpose of my fight and struggle for the purpose for all, while dealing with the extremes of humanity, loving himself in his perfectly uncontrived action, and delivering his unique expression to the world. He couldn't help but to deliver his unique expression to the world as a shared function to empower humanity. This is Edgar Casey. And look, he's got a first line. You know what that is? He had to build a foundation on this. So no wonder he did it over and over all day long. He was getting good at it. He was trying to build a foundation. So this man couldn't help it. But back to what I was saying as a comparison. So if 38 and 23 are the things he was here finishing, and he's a 1-3 profile with 25 in the sun, let's go over to David Wilcox. Hey, Davey, baby. Look at his profile. He's a 2-4. So this
and a manifester. When I saw that,
and he's a manifester, an emotional manifester.
When I saw that,
a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I'm pretty sure he's riding his waves, and I'm pretty sure he's had anger.
Oh, he guaranteed he's had anger. He's had tons of anger trying to be driven to fulfill the transformation of his own self. He would do anything for the transformation of his own self to fulfill his spirit through his emoting way and have a crash wave through all of that literally needed to have the experience. He needed to have the experience. He always needs to have the experience. He's always excited to have the experience. And the second it goes wrong, I bet you he gets super pissed. I would love to be a fly on the wall offset, because that's where it comes out. I mean, he's not going to display that out loud, on camera. So, or they'll edit it out. But this man has told people to go pound sand and F you and slam things and smash stuff and freaked out, in anger and abject rage at times. Now,
and as being a manifester, it's like that's the one out of all the designs that it's like that they either repel or like attract, right?
Right. They have their aura closes off and get smaller. People have a hard time breaking through into the manifestor unless the manifestor lets them. You and I, Robbie, we're generators. We have no choice. Sunshine can break through to you, and a bunch of people that need stuff can break through into me, and I have no way of stopping that. I have no shields I can put up, per se. All I can do is run and hide, and all you can really do is not answer the phone, But Jennifer can stand right there and just still not. No. But look at at the bottom, he's got a gate 38. It's defined twice. And it's in a defined center. This was here being completed by the person before him. It was in an open center. Now, that speaks to, I don't know if he's the reincarnation of, that says, I'm not too sure about that. But then he's got a gate 43, which is sort of the continuation of gate 23, which Edgar Casey had. David Wilcox has no gate 23. Maybe that was completed. Maybe he is the reincarnation of. Edgar Casey was a 1-3, and he has stepped up the ladder to the next foundational profile, which is the 2-4. So this is right in order. One's in order to the other.
Yes.
Okay, a little bit reincarnated. However, Edgar Casey had 2 gates he was here finishing, and suddenly this guy shows up with 7, of which, if you look at the head center, so the head center has 24 is one of the gates he's completing. Yep, and 47, and he's got a gate 1, one of the gates he's completing, a gate 46, one of the gates he's completing, a gate 14. Okay, go back to the other slide.
So you said something really fascinating and interesting to me on the phone earlier today. And I would like to see if I can paraphrase it. You asked me some questions like, do I think, he's the reincarnation or whatever? And you said, it more looks like David, like Edgar Casey is the reincarnation of David Wilcock, not the other way around.
Right.
Can you expound on that?
Yes, we're about you asked at the perfect time. So
wonderful.
Those gates that I had just referenced on the other one, don't worry, I remember them. They were gate 24. So look at his head center. He's got a gate 24 in a defined center. He's not here completing that. He's here living that out.
Which is interesting because, it's like as long as I've followed David Wilcock, which has been since like the late 90s.
Well, there's more. There's more. Look, so we're on Edgar Casey. Edgar Casey's got a gate 1 in a defined center to the top of the G center. What? Top of the G center. So there he is. This is something he's living out. What? Suddenly he's completing it again? This is something that would come beforehand. You would see if one was the completion of the other or the continuation of the other, this guy would be the continuation of the other guy, of this guy in this example. And the same thing now, gate 46. Look, he's here completing gate 46 and gate 14 between the G center and the thing. And look, gate 46 in a wholly defined channel. He's not here completing that. He's here living that. It's part of his incarnation cross. This is the end of the road for gate 46 for him.
So since he's completing it, does that mean like if if he is the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, would that mean that Edgar Casey didn't necessarily do all the work that he needed to do on those open gates and had to come in on a personality base? Like on the black center, like the black line?
Either black or red. It wouldn't matter. You're here completing the gates that are in the open, hanging off of open centers.
Okay.
Like I have 4 gates hanging off of open centers. I'm here completing what is it like to be limited under pressure and fearful of my past while I'm not sure what the intimacy is that I really will bond with. I'm here completing that process. And that shows up in my life.
It's fascinating when you click back between the two of them, how much, like just like glancing, if you knew nothing about human design, you would be like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on down at the bottom of the chart. It's like, I'm so grounded. And then like you flip back to Edgar Casey and it's like, it's all like, it's all like in the center and then up north. And it's like, it's fascinating to me.
There's only one
actually filled in.
Yeah, there's only one center they have in common. That's the Wilcox center. Otherwise, they completely fill in the other.
Yep.
It makes it look more like these two guys were accidental cosmic partners. the way.
Well, astrologically, it looks very similar as well.
Okay.
Like,
Oh,
from the birth
interesting
chart.
you say that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they both are Pisces,
Yeah.
Taurus moons. I mean, this isn't an astrology show, but it's like there's a lot of similarities in their astrological charts as well. I mean, the nodal axes are different, which is the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, and that's like where you check out is where you check in astrology. It's like
the planets changed, Robbie, right? The planets changed. Some of the planets will
right,
because it's 15 years, 25 years later almost.
Yeah.
Yep. 28 years later, actually. His death was 27 years prior to David Wilcox's birth.
Well, and also their Venus is in the same sign. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's like very similar.
That's cool. So again, so almost more like they're partners, as if, but cosmically so in some kind of way, if I could, because think about it. In the regular world, a man and a woman come together, they're attracted to what they're not. I'm just using an archetype of an example. Two people meet up with each other and suddenly they think the other is great. That's because that other has the centers that one doesn't have. And same thing, vice versa. We're filling each other in. That's the attraction of what we're not, by the way. That's the genes' attraction. That's not our attraction. That's the genes saying, hey, this is a good candidate to make more with. They're different. No inbreeding here. We've got difference and mutative difference for a nice, healthy, robust gene pool. That's why the genes seek difference. So they can make a robust, healthy, differentiated gene pool with every variation you can think of. So that's the genes attracting us. That's not us attracting us. In fact, we very much don't like the other person as soon as the honeymoon's over, we don't like them. It's like, hey, you're totally different than me. And the other one's like, yeah, you're totally different than me. And so, as soon as the honeymoon phase is over, that's why we came up with this old wives' tale. Hey, when the honeymoon is over, you got to get down, do the real work of being married. Hell yeah, because we got into it seeking difference. Where we really get our biggest boost as it relates to humanity is when we marry into plenty of sameness. Sameness is where there's communion, where there's companionship, where you can survive more easily the type of electromagnetic that brings trouble or is difficult. You can survive more easily where there is dominance. Well, dominance actually is a healthy thing, and you can definitely survive more easily where there's a compromise. There's always compromises in relationships, shall I say, almost always, where one person has the whole channel and the other person only has part of that channel. That becomes a compromise. You put our two charts together, Jen, and the three of the channels you have compromise gates of mine. I must surrender to where I would be compromised in a moment. When we went on our mission, I compromised to making sure you were out in front. I didn't even think about wanting to be out in front. I had to compromise to your initiation of all of that. Now, we can look at that as a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It's just a freaking thing. It's
just a thing.
It's a thing. A badge.
That's a damn quote. It's just a thing.
It's just a thing.
So that's not the end of it. We were at 46 and 14 off of this the G center and then sacral center gates that he was finishing out, that he's here to complete. And go back to the other slide to not Wilcox, but
Edgar's.
Thank you. So his 46 off of the G center and his 14, he's here just living them out. He's not here finishing any of that stuff. And look at his gate 1. Oh, we already did gate 1. He's living that out. He's not here finishing that. He's here living it. Ultimately, as Ra had put it, technically speaking, when you get to the end of the road, which no one ever gets to, we don't get to the end of the road. That's part of humanity. We never get to really finish, which hopefully leads to us being around forever and likely will lead to us not. But at the end of the road would be a completely white body graph, all open centers, no activations. But we know that can't be because we're born in time and space as far as we know. So, but that would be the ultimate completion, would be a totally open body graph, no activations, completely open to the forces. here completing nothing. Now, no one's ever going to have that in our lifetime that we're ever going to know, but anyways, and the last gate that I wanted to point to was gate 37, gate 10, and gate 27. Here on his body graph, 10 off of the G center, 27 off of the sacral center on the left-hand side, pointing towards the spleen, and gate 37, which is doubly defined. Go back to David Wilcox. David Wilcox should have already stretched across to the other side or been done with gate 37. One of the two.
And that's one of the little quinky dinks that like would make you say, well, Edgar Casey is the reincarnation of David Wilcock, not the other way around.
All 6 of these little coinkydinks that I pointed to are that. And here, David Wilcox is also here with a gate 9 at the very bottom. There is no gate 9 on Edgar. Yeah, Edgar and David. I'm just going with Edgar and David. So there's no, and he's got this gate 27, which would want to reach across to the gate 50 off of that sacral center, the bottom left. And here there isn't anything in that channel.
Yep.
So this just, yet all the centers that they fill in together, sharing this emotional solar plex center, one being ultimately supportive of it, and the other, this leads to the idea that that David is the reincarnation of Edgar, would be David. Edgar had that channel of community here to support all of that work he did. He was always going to have the ego, willpower, and the generative force, life force, to complete all of that stuff and keep doing it and keep doing it. And suddenly here comes this one on this channel of experiential, on the experiential wave 3635. It's on an emotional crash wave. It goes soaring through the roof because it's happy as a pig in shit. And the next thing you know, it goes crashing down because nothing seems to be working. Nothing's good enough. I don't care how much money the person has or how well they've done or whatever they've done. That crash wave goes up and down. It doesn't stop. Do either of you two ever remember having no emotional wave ever? No.
Didn't we have this conversation yesterday?
Yes,
I was aggravated on it. Was there anything I could do to delay it, or
Right.
if anything was triggering it?
You fall asleep.
Yeah.
I've become a surfer of my emotional wave.
Yeah. Waiver. Yeah, right. Get you on the surfer with some cool music in the background.
So if you look at, like, when you look at David Wilcox, like, human design, like, can you keynote that for us?
Absolutely. So here's a manifester, and his gate 22, that sun. I'm going to start there. The sun on this personality sun, that which is driven into him, is gate 22. It's in a defined center, and his gate 22 is about grace. He's the right angle cross of leadership. Before it was the vessel of love, having nothing to do with leadership. Here, it's straight up leadership. The rulership is what it really is. He's on the cross of rulership. He's here to rule. So he rules his roost. He's in charge of his set. He tells everyone where he's going to go, and he makes up the rules. It's very tribal.
So when you look at that, I mean, it's like, I know that he's like starting a company or something with like the hover cars. Would that be in his chart?
And
like futuristic kind of technology? I don't know. Is that in there?
Not so much technology per se, other than it might solve the confusion and solve something he's been returning to and come up with something that seems creative for him, and push a direction. Anything that's going to be materially successful is what this man's going to look at. Anything that is materially successful, he's got this gate, he's got this channel of transformation. It's from the spleen to the root center, 32 to 54. This is tribal. This channel of transformation is all about trying to rise up the ladder, being driven to transform your whole nature and the nature of the tribe that you're in, whatever it is. If you just do it for yourself, then you lead a lonely life. That transformation is for others, the continuity of the tribe to survive in a material world, That's what this transformation is. And tribes that transform their material way have successful offspring. They have successful ways. Their tribe can continue on. Everyone eats. There's plenty of food at the table. The support and the sensitivity to the needs of the tribe can be met. And now he's got this as a doubly defined channel. So he's driven. The man is driven. When I see this channel, it's just a channel of drive. Hey, what's that guy doing? He's freaking driven. Where to? I don't know, but he's driven. He's a 2. Yeah, he's a 2-4. So he's like me. He doesn't know why he knows what he doesn't know or knows. You know, he's not sure about all of that. But he knows that he has to externalize it. And what's he externalizing? He's externalizing an ego willpower, which he has not. He doesn't have the ego. It's open in him. He's always trying to prove what is it he's trying to externalize.
That is the truth.
Yeah, he's constantly trying to prove what is it he's externalizing.
Mhm.
And if he can't do it, his crash wave comes crashing down. Screw this, that's not right. That didn't sound good. And if he did prove it and his team helped him prove it and it came off pretty good, he's way up and it feels real good. And his spirit is full. These two do have a continuity. His 55 and the other's 55 are both unconscious. They're both unconscious. Yep, Edgar's 55 and David's 55. They're both channeling the unconscious awareness of what it is to have a spirit of humanity, our spirit, be full or empty. So he's driven to do all this stuff, and his 22, the Gate of Grace, hey, if there is going to be a design of rulership, we need it. And one of the aspects of rulership is just not just the authoritarian. That's what's unconscious in him. So that comes out, that sort of authoritarian ego willpower comes out in him unconsciously, intermittently. He can't always count on it. Other people condition it. I guarantee you that wife of his, did you say he's getting divorced?
Yes.
I will bet dollars to donuts she has that ego defined, or she has one of the gates that defines it. I mean, I bet $100 on it. And she's probably a generator. And got sick of it. Him trying to rule things. Because he can't always, with an open ego, you're not here to necessarily rule by force. But grace is at the head of rulership for him. So here is David with the ability to listen. The ability to listen. And he has a lot of listening going on, because that gate 43, that's also unconscious in him, off the ajna, pointing at the throat. That gate 43 is known as the third ear. Instead of a third eye, it's right here. We call it the third ear, because what we see is one thing. What we hear, we experience. If you have the choice and you're watching the movie and suddenly all the sound goes dead and you just see a bunch of lights going back and forth, it's got no meaning. If all the light goes dead and you just hear the sound, even if it's pitch black, you're like, I don't know what's on there, but it's pretty cool. What you hear tells you so much more than what you see. However, if we can't see anything, we're blind, so that's no good.
Well, David is that one of the musical gates? Because he's very musical.
It totally is. And one of the musical channels is 3635. The collective experiential conclusion of the experiential emotional wave that wants to have sex with everything. He's got a gate 41, which is all about, well, it's all conscious in him, but he's aware.
Really?
Yeah, this manifester with this open sacral center was conditioned by every sacral being that came along. As soon as a girl came into his aura, he was wondering, does he want to have sex with it? And he's got a fourth line in his profile, so sex with him began with friendliness. So he was immediately friendly. Foreplay for this man begins the second he shakes hands with the other person. Hey, how you doing? It's nice to meet you. Boom, foreplay. That's the beginning of it. This experiential wave is here to have sex with everything, to try everything, to go everywhere, to play many instruments, not just one. I don't have anything in this channel, Robbie. I just play the piano. I like it. I identify with that. This man plays the ukulele, the harmonica. He banged on the drums. He plays the piano, and he probably picks up a guitar sometimes. And somewhere along the way, he tried to blow a sax, a trumpet, or a flute. Who knows? So it's experiential. It's called the jack of all trades. And this jack of all trades wants to try everything. And then this other channel that he has, this channel 39 to 55, This is where we're waking up in humanity. This is the spirit of humanity that's waking up, constantly being provoked. So he's aware that he is a provocateur that has insatiable fantasy about things. So he will provoke the fantasy for the things he's driven to try to experience, to fill his cup so it doesn't feel empty, so he doesn't go down on his wave. He's trying to control his wave, would be my guess, unless he's had his human design read for him and he's gone into his process. He wouldn't necessarily be aware that he's trying to control his wave.
So, like, how would he, like, I know, like, for, like a sacral authority, it's the yes, no, and, like, for an emotional authority, it's waiting for the wave. Like, so what would his be?
His inner authority is waiting for clarity through the melancholy of when his glass is half full and half empty, through the experiential wave of what can he experience, and through that wave crashing down and crashing up. It crashes both ways. Don't forget, you can make a really crappy decision up on the wave just as much as you can make crappy decisions down on the wave. Down on the wave, I want it to end, I quit, I don't want you anymore, I want a divorce. Up on the wave, I love it all, do it more, let's get married, hurry up, let's go to Vegas. Both of them can be really crappy decisions. One driven high on the wave, it's intoxicating to everyone around it. David is intoxicating. He's a second line natural, so everyone receives the projection on him that he might be a natural at talking about aliens. He might be a natural. He's naturally, of course, he's naturally the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Naturally. You know, it's just.
So that gives, like, so Edgar Casey also has something in that second. He's got the bottom part.
He's got gate 55.
Yes.
Yep, and he's got one other gate down at the bottom, but an open road. So he was under pressure. Edgar Casey had to be put under so he could relieve the pressure of his root center trying to make him hurry up. Of course, again, everything about him laying down and falling asleep was just sheer brilliance. It solves everything in this body graph's problem for an awake, standing, upright, conscious being who's awake. They would run into all their not-self themes under pressure, trying to channel and trying to make stuff up. But asleep or half asleep, out can come out all of these things. And when you've got a gate 64, the primary dreaming gate, the gate that pressures confusion, the confusion that then comes to clarity, that's what he was doing. He would start channeling and he would go through this tunnel of confusion and he would awaken to clarity. And that's what he would spit out. But when you go back over to the other one, to David Wilcox's.
Did we lose Jennifer?
No, she pops in and out.
Okay. There's your base. Sorry.
There's no
We're having cat drama behind the scenes right now.
You know, it's funny. I'm having cat drama outside my office door as well. So it's like, it's like
I let my Willie
What's
out.
Willie doing? Is he like causing drama?
He's outside. He's outside killing something and eating its entrails. So I assume that's he likes that stuff. That's gross.
So looking at David Wilcox's chart, like what? How would you tell him to like if he was on the other end of this call or this podcast, like what would you tell him how to ride his emotional waves?
I would say, David, don't concern yourself with anything that you have to prove. You've got nothing to prove. You've got to remember when enough is enough. As soon as you feel anger coming through, that's your signpost that enough is enough. And you've got an open identity center. So you're not lost. You're right in the flow, even though you feel like you're lost, looking for love and direction to express your creative way. Gate 1, unconscious. He's so pissed when he can't express his creative genius. We all have creative genius. Hell, Mussolini had creative genius. Hitler had creative genius. They're awful people, but they still have creative genius. And I would tell him that on his open head and Ajna center, stop worrying about the things that don't matter. You concern yourself with too many things sometimes. Every time that happens, you'll notice it because you'll start to feel the oncoming of an emotional wave. And lastly, I would tell him, witness that every time you go up on the wave, you recognize this point when it starts to turn around and go back down again. It's conscious. His waves are mostly conscious. So when that's happening to him, he can see it coming.
They can last for seconds or minutes or hours or days or weeks. Is that
sometimes he'll see it minutes in advance. Sometimes he'll feel it a day in advance, hours, and he'll see it coming is the thing. He can feel it coming.
And so your advice to David Wilcock is
Would
to
be don't dread it. Down on your wave is your creative space. This is where you get creative, and you know it, David. You get creative as soon as you go down, no matter how mad you are, how frustrated you are, how much you want to maybe smash something because you're not in control of it, and you just want to be in control of stuff sometimes. That's not your shtick. You don't care about any of that stuff, and you will see as soon as you realize anger is your signpost that you're not living out your signature, which is peace. He's supposed to be here living in peace. Just like Robbie, you and I are supposed to simply be satisfied. We're just dumb generators. It's perfect. All you got to do is satisfy us. Hey, satisfy. Okay. Well, that was easy.
Like for not man, but for generators, like our signpost is frustration. So if you get frustrated, it's like a red flag.
Red
so
flag.
For him, it's anger.
Nothing's any good. Oh, this sucks. I'm just frustrated. And it can lead to anger and rage and all these things, but it starts out as frustration. And so that's our signpost that we know. But I want to read his Gate 22. So we just keynoted him some. So grace, openness, in leadership and in rulership, the king and the queen, in order to rule and teach their tribe, to be a successful king and queen and the archetype of that rulership, one must have grace. And we hear it all the time. Yes, my grace. Right away, my grace. Grace has been through all of it. It's the grace to listen. It's called the Gate of Openness, and it's this behavior suited for all matters, both mundane, trivial, and anything he can hear. So he's always listening.
And where's that in his chart? Gate 22?
Gate 22 is coming off the top of his solar plex center, pointing at the throat. David and I would be able to have an awesome conversation. I would define his ego for him, and his G center, and his sacral, and his head, and his ajna. I would define all these things for him, and I have a Gate 12, which would talk to his Gate 22. Yes, I mean, essentially, we would get along in that way. So this Gate of Grace, it's in the second line. It's called Charm School. This is a translation from the old Chinese I Ching, but it's the belief that style can mask the nature, and the nature is the draconian nature of what is rulership. But that style can make it seem not quite like that. No, I'm not just the authoritarian about this. I'm sort of democratic and all of that. Look, I'm listening. So as soon as you start talking to David, if David starts listening, he's stuck listening. He can't help it. He's driven to listen. It's in his personality son. How do you want to capture David? Start talking. What was it you said? Start talking again, until finally he storms out of the room. If someone talks too much, but he'll know when that time is. Listen, he's a seasoned man. He's not a kid anymore. So he's lived through enough of this. He's seen plenty of this stuff happen in him. And he's got, like we all have, we grab certain handles on things, but a handle on his crash wave, I don't know about that. I don't know anyone who I haven't read for who doesn't know anything about it that gets a good handle on their crash wave. It's just so experiential, just wants to go skydiving. Let me jump off the mountain. Let's do it in a canoe. What's it like to, be in an orgy? Fantasy. That's what it is. That's what Donald Trump had this channel, and so he was a pussy grabber, in his earlier days. And he was that. He did that. In his older days, it finally went away because he grew up and it starts to mellow out over time. Over time, it starts to mellow out in this, okay, I've been there, I've done that. I don't need to feel this other experience. I've already felt them all. So at his age, I don't know if he's felt them all. He's midway point. He's not, 60, so he's 50 yet. So I don't know if he's actually felt them all. He's just turning 50, as I recall, 49. So he's getting there. Donald Trump, however, he's already been there and done that. My guess is he's not grabbing girls' genitalia anymore. It's just not his thing. If that crash wave works in other ways. But so in this relatively young man, he's still in the thick of it. He's a walking boner sometimes, and he can't help it. And he's not bad. He just needs to know. And it's natural in him. Look, he's a 2-4, so it comes out naturally. That second line is immediately shy, so it's not like he's always doing that. But the second he shakes hands with someone of the opposite sex that's remotely attractive, that's the beginning of foreplay for David Wilcox. His foreplay starts the second he's networking with them, the second he's externalizing his truth. And this man has to talk. He has to talk over and over.
That's a given.
Talkity. He can't stop. And he's
Well,
trying.
that is beautiful that you say that, because if you've ever watched a live stream with him,
No, I know.
it's like you just may as well just block out 4 hours, because it's like we're only gonna do 2, and it's like, oh, we're at 3, but I gotta finish this stuff. You know, it's like, oh, we're
I
at 4, let's
can't
do the meditation. You know?
Why should he stop? Why should he stop, guys? Why should he stop? He's the design of somebody who's here to talk.
Yeah, and you know what? And he's great at it.
And unconsciously, he's driven through his Gate 45 to teach, to essentially teach the way to the tribe, not just to teach like a guru would teach, or a teacher at a school would teach, or masters teach their students. And he is here for some of that, but he's here to teach the whole tribe. Hey, tribe, we've got all these alien races. Earth tribe, be aware. The moon was hollowed out, and there was a base in there, and the moon was driven here potentially by an alien race and placed in geosynchronous orbit with us. I saw that on one of his videos. He floated that as a possibility. And he came up with lots of stuff that supported that he thinks that that's something that happened. Yeah. I don't know if he really thinks that happened, but he was.
Well, I mean, I don't think he. I mean, I think he walks his talk. I mean,
well,
that's just
he doesn't always walk his talk, which is, there's nothing wrong with this. It's here to attract society. According to this line, it's charm school. Suddenly, naturally charming. That's not always naturally truthful. It's just naturally charming. You know, the car salesman can be naturally charming. Again, there's no judgmentation on this. He's not bad. It's not bad or good. But this charm school is this belief that style can mask nature. So he just wants to keep an attractive style to things. So he's always projecting out the right message.
And so what gate is that? That's 22.
Yeah,
okay.
Gate 22. It's the possibility to attract others with this slick emotional style, the ability to successfully delude oneself.
So would that be different if it was unconscious?
Well, yeah, it would. He's aware of it when it's conscious. When it's unconscious, it would just come out of him. It would just show up.
So
he would wonder what's that going on. He would wonder if he was a fake. If this was unconscious, he would start to wonder, oh my God, am I, you know, sometimes he'd probably even feel guilty about it, and he shouldn't. And listen, we need to delude ourselves sometimes. If we just only go off of only what we know, we will never imagine that maybe there is no time. Maybe time is a construct of our imagination. I say it's delusional to say, hey, an hour from now, it's an hour later. I say that's not delusional, but he might delude himself and say, nope, that's delusional, and come up with a brand new theory. Einstein deluded himself. He had the Gate of Grace saying, I delude myself into saying, hey, space bends. Everyone's looking at space. It's like, what is there to bend? What are you talking about? It bends. What the hell? He proved it bends. Time and space can bend.
So what is the most if you what's the most important factor, the most dynamic human design that you would say?
One of the more important things would be this: don't beat yourself up when every once in a while you legitimize your form over your substance. When you legitimize the form first at the expense of the substance. Hey, the form is I put on a flashy 2-hour episode of why the moon was driven here like a Cadillac and parked outside the earth. That's the form. The movie had a nice form. Everyone filmed it right. He looked attractive. The story fit. The form. Substance? There's not a lot of substance to that. I don't find it very substantive. In fact, I would disagree with it thoroughly. And that is the second expression. There's always 2 expressions to each line. So that 22.2 has 2 expressions. One is the ability to successfully, now listen to the word, successfully delude oneself. That's a handy trick. You know, it doesn't, he's all the other gates in the body. He's not just this gate, you know, he's a holistic being. So part of him says, you know what, I'm going to sidetrack, but the second line is always sidetracking the behavioral norms of others through successfully isolating themselves. And if part of that is also successfully deluding himself that he can get this thing to make sense Sooner or later, maybe it will make sense. He'll externalize it out his fixed trip, his fourth line. That second line natural will externalize that fourth line fixed trip, which is part of his incarnation cross, that 2-4 profile. So he's waffling between, don't beat yourself up when you waffle between the successfully deluding yourself and others into the possibilities that could be true, and simply just legitimizing for the sake of legitimizing form over the substance, where style is energized at the expense of awareness. Hey, I'm sort of aware that might not be true, but the style's real classy. Let's go with it. That's the salesman.
So he's a 2-4, you said?
Yep, he's a 2-4.
So he's a hermit opportunist.
Yep, he's an opportunist. He's always seeking the opportunity within his network to advance his cause, where he's on the cross of rulership. So it's the grace to listen, to solve the confusion, and to be able to broadcast the message in an externalized, fixed way that teaches and grounds itself in what the tribe will have. In this case, he calls Earth and humanity his tribe. I love that. I say, you go, David. That's a lot of work. And so what if you spend a few moments deluding yourself in fanciful thoughts through the oppression of a confusing moment? You'll come up with something. Sooner or later, it'll all tie together. We don't know what he's contributing. He doesn't know what he's contributing. He's a second line after all. The second line, look at the second line like they're in their house, the lights are on, there's a marching band outside, and he's walking around, all the windows are open, and he's naked. He doesn't even know anyone's looking in. He doesn't know people are looking in on him. So he just crashes in like a little natural. Doop-be-doo. I am here. My name's David. Look at me. I'm going to tell you stuff. I'm the ruler, by the way. Oh, I'm a manifester, too. I want you to look at me. So I'm going to tell you to look at me. What? I'll tell you something a little delusional. The moon was driven here like a Cadillac and parked outside of Earth. Didn't you know? Hey, that's substance over form. Excuse me. Form over substance. Right? The form looks good, but the substance, you need the substance to back up the form. Right? I mean, overall. So he'll spend a bunch of time, and suddenly, as a little natural, he'll suddenly stumble upon the substance, and he'll add it into the form. Meanwhile, he bought himself all the time he needed through being a little bit superficial at times, going through a crash wave, wanting to have the experience, driven to have a material success, and driven like a manifester to impact people. He's driven to make an impact that leaves him feeling at peace. That's what he's here to do. And it looks like he's doing that. But I don't think he's the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Cosmically speaking, and karmically speaking, they're like maybe kissing cousins.
So maybe they're like divine counterparts or like soul family or something. They're like from the first 12 petals of the flower.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Something like that.
I love how you put that.
And we also never know what consciousness Edgar put out into the world that then was available to go into David at the time of David's conception.
Right.
That was then going to build the form, call in the personality, and then mint him differently at the time of his birth. This guy is about as different as you can get from the other one. David and Edgar are wicked different people. Wicked different. Doesn't matter that they look alike. They are wicked different people. One doesn't even know why it knows what it knows, and the other one had to study and find a foundation and drove itself to an early death.
You wanted me to do the wheel.
Yeah. Pull up the wheel for a second. So back to maybe one is the reincarnation of the other, although I still don't think so, because there's 27 years in between them. That doesn't make sense. That's not even a Saturn cycle. Basically, you would think reincarnation is hopping from one into the other. That's why I also asked if anybody knows, if anybody is on here and can chime in with a comment. Does anybody know, was Edgar Casey embalmed, or was there an autopsy performed on him? Or was he...
It wasn't. I don't believe he was. I mean, I don't believe so. I mean, he's buried in Hopkins.
Right. Well, he was buried he died on the 3rd and he was buried on the 7th. That's that full 3 days needed for his
Yep.
consciousness crystal to leave his body naturally and get accepted back into source. Back
Yes.
into the consciousness field of our plane. So it went back up there, is what it looks like. When did it come back down? We don't know. One of the things that speaks to maybe a little bit was this wheel. There are 4 quarters to our incarnative process. Being born in the quarter of initiation is all about mind. The mind that ignites the concepts that then fires up the ability to initiate. This is initiation, the basic fire of the seed and the egg coming together and turning into something. This is the cosmos smashing into itself and big banging itself into existence. So look at gate 22 on the wheel. It's on the far left. This is David Wilcox.
Okay. 22.
It's on the
It's
far
pretty
left.
tiny on my. It's pretty tiny on my little screen, so I can't really see
Yep.
what it.
It's far
Yeah,
left.
okay.
Yep, it's right there. And I
So
said
it's
it,
at 10 o'clock.
yeah, it's at 10 o'clock, far left. But no, I'm almost 9 o'clock. So that's David Wilcox. Now, as you progress around the wheel, which always moves counterclockwise, look at where the 25 is. The 25 is right
here.
below it. So this is part of the reason I said it almost looks like Edgar is the reincarnation of David.
Which I mean, linear time, is the third density construct. So I mean, it's very possible that could be.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And they're very close. They're both in the same.
Mhm.
They're both. One straddles the signs. That would be the vessel of love, Edgar, with his gate 25 and initiation, always initiating the ability to channel for the love of humanity. That was Edgar. But right before that was the grace to listen. And that grace to listen is David. So they are very close to each other on the wheel. That's why I wanted the wheel on here, so you could just see and look around the wheel and say, oh my God, they're in the same sign almost. Although so Edgar would have been born as a Pisces.
And David, they both are Pisces.
Yep. But Edgar was very close to the cusp of Pisces because it was
the 18th.
Yep.
Yes.
And it was like the 3rd or 4th or 5th or something for it.
I think it was the 8th because
8th,
my birthday was on the 6th.
So the 8th. So again, so it's right smack in.
Yes, the 8th.
Yep. So it's smack. They're very close they're very close on the wheel is what I'm getting at. I wanted to point out, but as far as our genetic construct goes, the sun, we move around the sun. Therefore, the sun goes through each of these hexagrams in order over and over again, sewing us up according to our own literal third density genetic matrix. I mean, our genetic matrix is here. It's in us. It makes us breathe and talk and walk. We have it. Third density or not, whatever that really truly means, which, we've yet to actually prove. We just intuitively know that we are transcending clearly. But as we're being sewn up, 22 naturally starts to move into 25, not the other way around. Cosmically speaking, the revolution of the outer equinox of the true constellations way out, that does move clockwise. So technically speaking, on a way out version of all of this, as we look at the greater planetary construct, which is way out beyond our solar system, even beyond our galaxy, that the precession of the equinox does move clockwise at a steady clip, in which case 25 would be moving into 21. So I'm torn because we're talking about 2 humans on Earth, which leads me to say the construct is 22 moving into the universal love and the gate of innocence, where it all starts. Where human is struck into humanity, basically, is through this initiation, this quarter of initiation. And so grace would have turned into a form of rulership. That rulership ultimately would have come into some form of dominion. That dominion would have gone through the crisis of having to get cast out into Eden, gate 36. Eden would have then become the plane, just sort of spreading out. And as it spread out, the universal innocence of the love of all things can finally start to make more and initiate. This is the movement around the wheel. And ultimately, it appears as if David moved into Edgar, not the other way around, if we had to pre-surmise reincarnation. Having said all of that, 27 years in between, I don't know. I would think the incarnative index is like busy. So,
well, I mean, there could have been a short life in between as well. Just saying, throwing that out there.
Oh, good point, Robbie. Who knows? You're absolutely right. Who knew? There very well could have been. It was still 45. You're right.
I mean, it's like you think about all the people that die around the age of 27, the 27 Club or whatever. I mean, that's pretty significant. I mean, that's usually around your first solar return astrologically.
Right.
And also around your second solar return is at, 57 to 60. So it's around the age of 58. A lot of people check out then too. So
that all makes sense. So I don't know how to basically finish going about this, but David Wilcox, he channels plenty of things. He's got some really great ideas. David Wilcox is also, just a bright, shiny little thing, because all second lines people always call them out. So what do you they get called out? It's not his fault.
But they get called out to share their innate talents.
Their innate talents that just show up that they didn't even know they had at first, yet they worked all their life to get. There's no accident to their innate talents, but that they work hard to get them, but they don't know they're working towards that at first. They sort of just show up and other people are like, hey, you might be good at this. Hey. And that's how we're designed to keep mixing it up. There is one other cool thing that just occurred to me about them being the reincarnation of the other. And you're right, there could have been a short life in between, and that would have been the changing cross, believe it or not. Because in between the 1-3 profile and the 2-4 profile, it goes 1-3, 1-4, and that's a brief, short section of time, and then 2-4. So there is an argument to be made with that, Robbie. There's actually, I'm glad I didn't even think of that. There's a great argument to be made with that. Someone living out the shorter cross in between, the shorter profile. That 1-4 profile is only a part of the arc. The 1-3 is 80% of the arc, 83%, and then that 1-4 would be 17% of that arc of the sun around that and through that gate. So it's just a mathematical linear measurement of time, but that could have worked out. And also, the first and the second lines make a profound binary. They make the foundational binary. The first line, Edgar, who came first, is building the foundation. The second line, David, who came second, is basically projecting out what the aspects of that foundation could be. The first line was the universal love of all things. And in David, the second line was the rulership to teach everyone about that universal love of all things through the study of aliens and all the stuff that may or may not have ever come to this planet. I still don't think the moon was ever hollowed out, because the moon is a filter of our neutrino ocean, and it filters it in a very specific way. And if it were hollowed out and or had other material on it, it would work differently.
I don't know. I would agree to disagree. It's like, I have a good friend, Dad, that's like, witnessed the moon actually ringing like a freaking bell for 90 minutes, like from the, like wherever they shot it off from, like back in, 69.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's like, it's
doesn't
something.
Make it hollow.
I mean, it doesn't mean that it couldn't be that. And
right.
A space vehicle. It could be a yes and thing.
Yep.
Because we wouldn't be in existence really if we didn't have the moon and with the tidal lock. I mean,
absolutely. And for the moon to have that effect on us, it has to have a gravitational pull. Gravity does require mass, so far as we know, still, and that mass does create a gravitational field. And notice the moon and the Earth. If you look at it, it looks like the synthesis of the beginning of everything. The moon Earth is like a hydrogen atom, a nucleus with one.
Absolutely. It totally does.
Yeah.
Spins around.
Yep, it looks like a hydrogen atom, one electron circling a nucleus center, the Earth.
Reminds me of that Star Trek episode.
One moon circling. That's where I grabbed it from.
Exactly.
Yeah, they spoke in code and to each other to try and convey a message. One moon circling. What is that? One moon circling. It was a 2-part episode. It had Q in it. What is one moon circling? And then he figured it out. It's Earth and the moon. It's a hydrogen atom. It was there to give a clue. Hydrogen was the clue, and someone did something with hydrogen, and then it fixed everything. Data figured it out.
Well, Deanna and Data.
Was it? Yeah, it was of course it was Deanna and Data. She was the empath of it all, like you, Robbie.
Yep.
So you're like Deanna, Robbie.
She has bigger boobs than I do.
We have a couple comments.
Fire away. What do you got?
All right. Arksy said there's quite a cool synchronicity here. Casey channeled the Law of One series, which was a series of channelings from the being that told Casey, I am Ra. We kind of touched on that at the beginning. It seems that there's a lot of Raws coming through with channelings. Then they said both Casey and Krakauer. I don't know who that is.
Krakauer is Robbie Allen Krakauer. That's Ra Uruhu.
Oh, okay, okay.
Before he changed his last name was Krakauer.
Yep.
So what does that say? Both Casey and Krakauer channeled divine. Yeah, they did.
Yes. And Casey himself, had stated in his own readings about his own life that he was Ra Ta, a priest from 10,500 years BC during the Egyptian times.
And Ra Uruhu was no deity at all. Ra was just the sun, and Uru and Hu are both sort of proper adjectives to describe that. It's like a surname. And
see, I am Ra B.
Robbie. That's true.
Yes, you are.
Won the Gate of Fantasy that he has. Absolutely. I pointed that out with David Wilcox. He's got that Gate 41, which would have fueled the fantasy for that channel of desire that was the jack of all trades, the channel of transitoriness, the one I said that was the emotional crash wave that had him basically, foreplay with everyone he ever taught. As soon as he talked to him, that was the beginning of foreplay for David. And fantasy would have abounded. I can only imagine what went on in that man's mind. And it's all loud. There can be no judgment on that.
What Gate makes him talk a lot. That's great.
The gates coming off of his throat and his incarnation cross, 35 and 45. They make him talk. And 22 makes him talk.
And what's interesting in both their astrological charts, their Mercuries are both in Pisces.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And their Venuses are both in Pisces. And they both have Mars in Capricorn.
So there's a lot of correlation there.
Yeah. I mean, astrologically,
Oh, you're being asked a question here, Robbie. What's that say, Jennifer?
I was thinking that too, Robbie, in a way that David's reincarnation is a continuation of Casey. So if he's evolved into this life, it makes sense that his design is different.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yep. So I can't settle this, by the way. It's my opinion he is not the actual reincarnation of Edgar Casey. I mean, I'm looking at this, and it's not just about two different beings. It's about two different trajectories.
Well, can I?
Go ahead.
If a soul is coming down here for a specific mission, would that play a part? Would they have to follow the wheel? If an energy needs to come down here to serve a purpose for a specific reason, would it classify following the wheel, or can?
If it was coming down for a specific reason, it would necessitate following the wheel. If it actually had the intent. Now, I would postulate that we are coming in as essentially randomly, and then we create that intent. That's our job. That's our cosmic, godlike job. In other words, it wasn't just given to us. We had to also create it. But I don't know. These are all I'm postulizing them. So, but if there was an actual intent, it would assume that the universe had intent, which is a big assumption. And it would have to follow the wheel. It would have to follow the wheel, Jennifer, because to get that intent right, you'd have to pick the gate that serves that intent. You wouldn't have someone intent to come in as a vessel of love and shoot him down on the cross of Eden. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
shoot him down on the whatever, you know, and you know, and so forth and so on. You would have to pick, if there was an intent, then they would pick the gate and the line to serve as the incarnation cross for that being, if there was a true intent. David is serving his purpose of rulership.
Yes, and I'm still going to play around with the idea that, you know, it going backwards, because we talked about that, and I think it's, to me, it makes sense.
There you go.
I'm not convinced either way, by the way. I'm not totally, I don't disbelieve it. I just have a leaning that I sort of don't think, but listen to the words I'm saying. I don't think he is, but what does that mean? I don't mean shit. So.
Well, I mean, whether or not he is or isn't, they both have fascinating charts, fabulous similarities. I mean,
they appear to be cosmic romantic partners.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like we don't know exactly how time works. I mean, we could pick a life as you know, now, and then, you know, our next incarnation could be like 10,000 BC. You know, we don't know exactly. We don't know for sure.
We don't even know if we're here, Robbie. We don't even know if we're here.
I ask myself that all the time.
Yeah,
right?
Am I even here? I don't know.
Well, I think you did another great job, Dan. Thank you.
Yes,
fascinating.
Fascinating.
Wasn't it, Robbie? Thank you for coming on. You really helped promote the stuff that pulled out of my mouth. So I love it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah, if I had to do this stuff alone, it would get real boring.
Well, I enjoyed coming on, and shout out to, you know, it's like Edgar Casey. Like I said, I've been a big fan of his since I was a little kid, reading him in the hot sheets on the National Enquirer. And then I went to visit his hometown when I was just probably 6 or 7 years ago, before I actually moved to Asheville. No.
You know, I want to give a shout out to David Wilcox.
Oh, I think she froze.
What? She froze. I want to give a shout out to David Wilcox while she's frozen.
I won't leave her face like that online.
Yeah, no, right. That's fine. That's fine. Bye, Robbie. Love you.
Love you, Robbie.
I'm so psyched about David Wilcox overall, because I'm just excited for you, David. You're a 2-4. You're a natural. Just watch out for your explosive waves and recognize you're here to be at peace. Watch that anger as it consumes your life sometimes. Don't let it. You're not here to prove that you're in the right direction. You're here to be the right direction as a natural. So I think he's got an excellent life ahead of him, filled with rich stuff that's going to promote all kinds of things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. And thank
Jennifer,
you.
This is great.
Yeah, well, it really was. It was a great episode, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope you out there enjoyed it as well. Looks like we have Dan and Savannah, or Savannah says, yes, Dan, good, so good. Thank you. And loved Robbie and Jen too on the show. Thank you. Thank you.
Everything. I love you,
everybody. And for everybody who tuned in, if you are new to the show or you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe. Super excited that we hit 100 subscribers today. With your help, it'll help grow this channel, get this information out. Also, make sure to check the links down below if you haven't already. We do have a newsletter list. And if you haven't already had a session with Dan, make sure you book that, because
let's get you in, guys. Let's get you through the mill. Get you started.
Go ahead. I keep cutting you off.
Just got to get you started. Let's get the ball rolling, man. Let's wake them up.
That's right. Let's wake them up.
Yeah.
Guys, have a wonderful evening. We'll see you on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, noon Pacific Standard Time. With that said, much love, and we will talk to you later.
Much love. Peace.